I just want you to know that this message in the beginning of the series is one that is very dear to me because it talks about our responsibility to our community. It talks about our responsibility in the places that we live. And so you're going to hear me talk about the city. And when I talk about the city, you're like, this is Castroville. It's like a little speck on the map. No, it's a city, right? And it's a place that God has placed us. And we're going to talk about what does it look like for us to be reframed people in the context of a church body in the midst of a city. What does it look for a church to be reframed in the image of Christ? And it means that personally we have some work to do. Personally, we need to be people that are transformed. That's why we began at the very beginning of this year, first with prayer, but then talking about what does it look like for me personally to be reframed in the image of Christ. Because if that happens, then everything about me changes. And when everything about me changes, it affects everything around me. So as we are reframed, it affects every other area of our life. Our families benefit from this change. Our relationships are changed. Our generational curses that we have been dragging through generation after generation, in the power of Jesus, they are broken. Marriages are made stronger. Marriages are made more resilient. In worship, it takes on a new power. In future generations, they benefit because of the legacy of faith that grows. So what happens when the gospel takes hold of a church? When the gospel truly takes hold in the life of a church, it is a powerful thing because the power of the gospel is the power to redeem. It's the power to renew and the power to restore. And it flows from the lives and the hands of the people of God. And that can only happen if the church is made up of people who are being reframed in the image of Christ. This only happens through the power of the sacrifice and resurrection of Jesus. You know, a vast majority of churches in the United States, they tend to keep the gospel to themselves, or they promote a kind of gospel that is not the gospel that we read about in the Bible. Often, whether they realize it or not, they take on an attitude towards the cities that they live in that create a barrier to the gospel in the lives of the people of the community. And so we're going to talk about most churches take on one of three attitudes towards the cities that they live in. Either apathy, animosity, or imitation. Now the apathetic church exists within the city, but it doesn't engage with the city. The impact that this type of church is very minimal on the surrounding community. They're kind of like, you know what, I can take it or leave it, but I'm probably just going to leave it. Almost all of the activity of the church, it takes place for the benefit of those who are inside it. And it echoes what Jesus told the church of Laodicea in Revelation chapter 3, starting in verse 15. He says this, I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Now, one of my more favorite translations says, you make me want to vomit. But the apathetic church is one that is neither refreshing nor therapeutic. It doesn't bring healing and it doesn't bring refreshing. So that's the attitude of apathy. The second attitude is one of animosity. Now that's one of those bigger words, right? Animosity is just this striving, this pushing against. And this kind of a church looks out into the community and sees that their deeds are evil, right? And so they say, you know what? The whole city is evil, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to put up walls, and we're going to shrink back, and we're going to protect ourselves from the influences of all the evil that's around us. And the best example of this that I can think of in the scriptures is about Jonah. Now, I think about the story of Jonah, and I don't know, some of you maybe grew up with VeggieTales, and so that song just automatically popped in your head. You know, Jonah was a prophet, but he never really got it, right? And you're like, ooh, right? But here's the thing. Jonah was a prophet, and God said, hey, listen, I have a people that you need to go to. There's a people that you need to step in because they are a people that are evil. They are set dead against everything that I call holy. And God says to Jonah, I want you to go and I want you to tell them this message, repent or be destroyed, right? And so Jonah says, hey, that's a really cool statement. I'll just go for the last part. God, would you destroy them? But Jonah knew something about God. He knew that God didn't want the evil to persist, but he also knew something about the very character of God. And he didn't want God to redeem the Ninevites. And so here's what happened in Jonah chapter 4. When Jonah figured out that the people had begun to repent and they had turned their hearts towards God, this is his response. It displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And he prayed to the Lord, and he said, oh Lord, isn't this what I said when I was yet in my country, before I even left my house? Didn't I say this is what you were going to do? And that's why I made haste to flee to the opposite side, to Tarshish. For I knew something about you, God. I knew that you are a gracious God, that you're merciful, that you're slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, and that you relent from disaster. Therefore, since these evil people have turned to you, God, therefore, take my life from me, because it is better for me to die than to live. Now we look at Jonah and we go, that's silly, right? I mean, wouldn't we want the evil to be turned from? But think about the context and the attitude of churches that you are probably very familiar with. This is the type of church that says, you know what, everything we do is right, and everything that the world or the city or people that are outside of us does, it's wrong. And it's a classic us versus them way of doing church. And so the way it plays out in the community, or as they are serving Jesus in the community, it's a lot of smiles on the outside as they are judging with disdain and contempt on the inside. Their hearts are set against the city. Or they take on the third attitude. It's an imitative church. It's a church that is of the city. And the only way I can think of to describe this is a church that adopts the patterns and the culture and the behaviors of a city so that you don't see a difference from the outside to the inside. And you're like, isn't that kind of what we're going for? We're wanting our church to be like the community. Isn't that what we're kind of going for? Because that kind of feels right. But God said that my people will be different. God said, my people will be different. And so, in this context, when a church begins to lose its identity, it also loses the power of the gospel. This is what happened when a church gets so sucked far in to being just like the culture that is around them, and they look so much like the city that surrounds them, that they began to become so comfortable that they stopped to seek restoration and renewal. They say, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And Jesus said to the church in Sardis, he says, I know your works. You have a reputation of being alive, but you're dead. You have this reputation of being a vibrant group of people that everyone wants to be with, but it looks like you're alive, but inside you are dead because you aren't doing the things that I told you you should do. And so there's three attitudes that prevail in the church. But I'm thankful that there's a fourth attitude that we can have towards our city. And it's one that God has shown us in his word, that we can be not a church of the city, not a church against the city, not a church in the city, but a church that is reframed, because a reframed church is for the city. A reframed church is one that is for the community that surrounds it. Now, the context that we're going to pull from this one comes out of the book of Jeremiah, and it's God's people. God's people have been in this place where God said that you have turned from me, and as a result of that, the Babylonians are going to come. This is the message of Jeremiah. The Babylonians are going to come, and they're going to take you out. They're going to rip you from your homes, and they're going to pull you into their own land. And so God's people in this moment have been severely beaten down. Their cities have been destroyed. They're left in ruins. They've lost family members. They've lost their livelihoods. The Babylonians came in and just leveled the city. They were invaded and just left in ruins. And then Babylon took stock of the people, and they looked for the best of the best, and they brought them back to Babylon, to their country, to live in their own cities. And God gave his people instructions about what to do now that you have lost your home and you find yourself in a strange land. Jeremiah 29, starting verse 4. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile. Don't miss that. To all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. There's something very important for us to pull from this, is understanding that even if you find yourself in a location not of your own choosing, you find yourself moving across the country to a place called Castroville, Texas, a place not of your own choosing, rest assured that there's a purpose for you being here. God says to his people, there's a purpose that I've let you go into Babylon. He says, so since this is the place you find yourself in, I've sent you into exile. Here's what I'd like you to do. Here's what I'm commanding you to do. Thus saith the Lord, right? Build houses and live in them. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. God told his people, even though you don't like the place that you've gone, here's your role. Don't stop being my people and increase. Don't stop, increase. Go to where I planted you and multiply. Don't lose your identity as a people. Don't imitate the Babylonians around you. This isn't a, hey, go and just join them kind of a thing. This is, hey, I want you to go and I want you to be there, but I want you to multiply and be my people. Grow in this city and change it. Because here's the genius strategy of Babylon. This is something that you can read about in history books. It's the strategy that the Babylonians took in order to bring and expand their territories. They would first go by force and beat down their enemies. They would destroy their cities. They would make sure that they couldn't live in the place that they just walked into. And then they would take the best of the best, and they would bring them into their city, and they would treat them extravagantly well. They would bring them in. They would give them leadership positions. They would give them great places to live. They would give them good food, good jobs. I mean, think about Daniel. He came, he was pulled into Babylon, and he was hanging out with the king. And they would put the people there and put them in the best places. Make sure that they had no needs and make them so comfortable that within 2 generations, they wouldn't be any different from the Babylonians around them. They made it so the people loved being Babylonian. And God told his people, don't do that. I want you to increase. I want you to be fruitful. I want you to remain my people. You are my people, and I am your God. Remain so. But I want you to get in the midst of these people. I want you to get in the midst of Babylon. I want you to have kids. I want you to build your homes. But whatever you do, don't lose your identity. Be part of the city, but be mine in the middle of it. Do not come in and stand up and be against the city. Don't determine you're going to destroy it from the inside out. He says, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile. I want you to seek its welfare, pursue its flourishing, because God didn't want his people to hate the Babylonians. He wanted them to love them. He wanted them to seek their welfare. Let that sink in just a second. God wanted them to seek the welfare of the people who had just destroyed them. He says, I also want you to do this. I want you to pray to the Lord on behalf of the city. And this is a call for them to be salt and light in culture. It's not a call to hate and call out the city as evil, but instead to be salt and light in a dark place. The Hebrew word for welfare is shalom. And shalom means peace. It means completedness. It means wholeness. And if God had just told them, listen, I just don't want you to hate the Babylonians, I think that would have been hard enough, right? These people, they destroyed everything that I've ever known. They destroyed this home that has been in our possession for generations. And they took away everything that I had. They took away my job and my family. And it would have been huge for God just to say, hey, listen, when you're there, don't hate them. Because that would be hard enough. But God says, I want you to seek their wholeness. I want you to pursue the complete health of the city that you're living in. I want you to make it better. I want you to make it flourish. But if you think about it, when we make a move, and some of us I know have never moved, but some of us in here have moved often. And when you start thinking about a city that you're going to, most of us live in a city for the purpose of taking from it. We think about, okay, we're going to go there. Either we want to or we don't, whatever it is, right? But here's what we're going to do. Here's what you do when you decide that you're going to build a house or buy a house or relocate anywhere. It's this. What is there that the city has to offer? What are the amenities? What is it that I can gain from being there? Maybe it's family that's close by. But for sure, if I have kids, I'm going to ask the question, are there good schools? Can I make a living? Can I have a career? What's the feel of the city? And we start asking all of the questions from the consumer mindset. And to be honest, we could just substitute church for city. Most of us go to a church for the purpose of taking from it. What does it offer? Are my friends close by? Or is my family here? Do they have good programs? Can I see myself there? How's the atmosphere? Do I feel convicted if I don't want to be? And think about this context. God said, here you are, and I placed you here. And God says we are in a city primarily to give to it. We are primarily in the places that God has put us in order to give to those places, to seek the shalom, to pursue with our effort, to pursue with our lives, seeking the flourishing of the cities that we live in. Not just spiritually. The mandate of the church is to go, therefore, into all the world and tell them about the good news of Jesus, right? And so we could say, hey, listen, I will go anywhere and I will go tell people about Jesus. And it's not just spiritual. It's the universal health. It's the overall goodness, the wholeness of the community in which you reside, the prosperity of that city. Because God says, for in its welfare you will find yours. So what does that mean? It means that it is our job to care for the poor. It is our mandate to take care of the sick, to minister to those who are lonely, to make a way for those who are oppressed to succeed in their lives, to bring justice to the city, to make it better. Which means in business, we make decisions that support the flourishing of the community economically. It means as parents and teachers and administrators that we seek the flourishing of the city educationally. Not only in our homes, but also in all of the city. So what if? What if the people of First Castroville decided to stop looking for what we could take, but began looking biblically at the city and started praying on its behalf and sought the flourishing of the city? Jesus said when we take on this type of a mindset, something huge is going to happen. That the city will glorify God. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 15, Jesus says in verse 13 that you are the salt of the earth. Then down in 14 or 15, he says, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but they put it on a stand, and it gives light to all the house. And Jesus said it in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and not give glory to you, but give glory to our Father who is in heaven. Jesus said it this way: be salt and light in your community. Be salt and light. Preserve. Bring out the fullness and the flavor. Be salty in this community. Bring out the flavor and illuminate. Make Jesus, make his light shine in you so that others will see. And it can turn an entire city for the glory of God. So how can we begin to be a church that is reframed? How can we live this out? What are some practical application steps that maybe we can enact today or this week? How can we live as a reframed church for the city? The first thought is meet needs. Help the hungry. Volunteer and distribute food. Good for you that we have ministries that do just that here. Okay? We have three opportunities every single month for you to do just that. If you want more information about that, you can find it on Church Center, you can find it on our website, but we have 3 food distributions every single month. We have a food pantry, we have all kinds of things that you can do to help those who are hungry and in need of care in that way. But you say, you know what? I get the text messages and I'm always at work. I get it. But that doesn't mean that you can't participate. If it doesn't work on your schedule, maybe you choose then to collect food donations as part of your small group. You collect the food and then you bring it to the church. And the volunteers that have the opportunity to serve in that way can distribute it to those who are in need. Pretty good, right? Number 2, partner with the schools. We have students that need somebody positive in their life to mentor them, to tutor them. They need somebody to encourage them in their studies. They need somebody to be a positive influence in their life. And you say, listen, I barely like my own kids. I'll pray for you, but you can encourage teachers. They need encouragement, right? You can support the staff at the school. Now, our church is in partnership with Medina Valley Middle School. The administration has, in their thoughtfulness, last year they approached the churches and said, hey, what would it look like if we worked together better? And so we started this partnership with the school district, and different churches in the community have affinities or partnerships with the schools, and we have Medina Valley Middle School. So we have some ideas that you can join in on, and we'll let you know about those too. Number 3, clean up the community. Did you know that the Parks and Rec department has a volunteer crew that goes and cleans Regional Park once a month? And 9 o'clock knew that. Did you know that? This was the interactive part. I'm so sorry. No, good. Okay, well, they do. And so they have people that come and they volunteer and they pick up trash all around the park. But what if we said, you know what, it doesn't matter what day of the month it is. If I'm out in my community and I see that there is trash just out and about, what if we determine that we just pick it up and throw it in the garbage? What if we went further than that and we said, you know, I live in a neighborhood, and I could be a person that would go and help my neighbors to clean up their areas, to clean up and make it just look a little bit less unkept. And you're like, well, if we're going to do that, we'd have to start at my house. And that's fine. But did you know that when a community is clean and beautiful, the pride goes up? And this is the strange thing. Crime goes down. When communities are well kept and cared for, there's a collective sense that we're in this together. And speaking of being in this together, number 4, support local businesses. Shop local. Did you know a good number of the local businesses in this town are run by Christians? So what if we decided that we were going to help them by shopping here first before we went online? You're like, this is hard. Me and Amazon guy, we got a relationship going here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to share the gospel after about 15 more deliveries. It's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about caring for those that are in the midst of our community, trying to make it better. And when we support local businesses, it strengthens our local economy, and you may find that you could have a new friend. Number 5, be a helping hand. We regularly look for opportunities to help our community through our missions ministry. We connect with other people to help with home repairs and other things that they have in need of assistance. What would it look like if you helped your own neighbor to make their space more functional? You have an older neighbor in your community that has children that live far away and they're in need of a few just minor repairs, but you don't find yourself that handy? I mean, do what I do. I jump on YouTube and I watch that video 20 times and still mess it up, but I get it fixed eventually, right? But can we be people that lend a helping hand to those who are in need? Number 6, participate in community events. Be part of the community that you live in. Get to know the people. You know, we have things like Fiorella Fridays. That's the first Friday of the month. They close down Fiorella Street, and it kind of expands into other areas. And there's live music, there's vendors, there's just people all about. What if you chose to be part of the community? You go to the Independence Day Parade, you go to Old-Fashioned Christmas, you just join in the community and the rhythms that already exist. And you get to know people, and you encourage them. Number 7, regularly go on prayer walks. Now, this is going to be a continued rhythm through the fall, but let me tell you this. You don't need an organized prayer walk to walk out in your community and pray for it. You can do a prayer walk every single day. You can do that in your community and in your neighborhood. You can have a neighbor join you in that, and you can walk the neighborhood and pray for your neighbors, pray for the businesses, the organizations, and ask God to give you an opportunity. Ask God to put somebody in your path. Ask God if He would give you an opportunity to pray with some people that you meet. That's being salt and light in our community. And now listen, I could give you a super long list of other things that we can do, but we got 7 here. Can you choose 1, 2, 7 of them to do? So our vision for First Castroville is for us to have an impact on this community that is well more than theological. We want an impact on the city that is well more than just speaking the gospel into the community, which we will continue to do. But what if for somebody to understand and know that the gospel is real and alive in you, they have to see that you are for them too? What if we have an impact on the social and economic and cultural just trajectory of this community? It will happen if we learn to be a church that is salt and light, one that is reframed because our lives are being reframed in the image of Christ. Could you join with us in this vision that we can impact this community and show this community that we are for them?